Victress FM, brought to you by Victress Entrepreneurs. Here's your host, single mum, entrepreneur and brain injury survivor, Michelle Williams.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victress FM, where every week I'll be introducing you to inspiring women who have gone after their dreams and refuse to give up even in the face of extreme adversity. We'll be diving into her victories and her defeats and discovering the lessons that she's learned along the way, all with the aim of inspiring you to step into your own unique power to create a business and life that you love. This week I was joined by the inspiring Bonnie Frank, a former elementary school teacher and college professor who turned full-time entrepreneur overnight by creating her own business coaching and consulting company. Bonnie has an incredible story of triumph over adversity, having started her own online coaching business from scratch with no money or support whilst raising 2 young sons and caring for her husband. Bonnie's love for teaching and passion for helping others comes across so strongly, as does her grit, determination and resilience, which I think are valuable business and life lessons for us all. I absolutely loved this interview with Bonnie and I hope that you do too. Hello and welcome to another episode of Victress FM, where I'm really delighted to introduce today Bonnie L. Frank. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today on Victress FM.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on because, as you know, this show is all about celebrating women's triumph over adversity. And I'm particularly interested in sometimes how adversity shapes us and also can take us onto sort of bigger and brighter new paths. And I know you've had your own adversity in life, but you've gone on to achieve some amazing things. So I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing your Victress story with us today, please, Bonnie.
Sure. My background is elementary education. My degrees are in that, and I'm a mom of 2 boys. Mm-hmm. And while I was raising them always, but while I was raising them and starting and growing my business, my husband had to be hospitalized. I had to commit him and get him a diagnosis. And so during the last 20 years that we were married, I was taking care of him and the boys. Mm-hmm. And building my business at the same time. And like I said, my degrees are in education. So everything that you see with my coaching and consulting, that's all self-taught.
Okay. So what, obviously, if you can sort of like talk about the business, because obviously you're not in teaching anymore. You've gone on to set up your own coaching business. How did that actually happen? And, you know, obviously if you could go through a little bit more about that adversity and how that's kind of catapulted you, if you like, and actually helped you to develop into the person that you are today.
Sure. 2 years before I started my coaching and consulting business, I was a full-time blogger. I was a mommy blogger for different brands, and brands would pay me to do videos. That was before the word vlog was invented, to vlog about them and blog about them and post on social media. So that's how I taught myself social media and grew a pretty large following that way. But then I decided to create my own brand, to get rid of any middlemen or middlewomen, mm-hmm. and create my own brand. And that's when I started teaching myself how to do that, which is really difficult when you're working by yourself. Yeah. And as I said, my boys were really young. And while I was doing this, and I was no longer having the money coming in from brands, my husband at the time would come up to me while I was working. I had a desk in the living room. That's all I had. Mm-hmm. And he would come up to me and tell me that I should stop, and he would interrupt me, and he would tell me there was some emergency I had to go deal with. And he would tell me about every 2 weeks, he came up with a different idea of a way that I could make money that would take me away from what I was doing. And So to say that I had no encouragement doesn't even begin to describe it. And my friends and family had no understanding because they all worked for someone else. So they didn't understand the entrepreneurial journey, and they definitely didn't understand starting a business online. They didn't understand any of that. So they had zero idea what I was doing. And really, they didn't support me either. They just kept telling me I should go back to teaching because I was such a good teacher. And I loved teaching. I did. But I no longer wanted to do that. So I had no support, and I had no money to invest in my business either. All of the money that I'd made from teaching had already been earmarked for the family. So I was starting from scratch with no support, no education in that realm, and no money. And then I found out also that I had no followers because all of the thousands and like tens of thousands of people that had been following me as a mommy blogger, they were not interested in hearing about a woman starting a business online. So I also had to start all of my followers from scratch as well. So it was less than stellar.
Yeah, so what was your original mummy sort of blog about? That was kind of general, like mummy stuff, but obviously not relative to people then that want to start their own business. Is that correct?
Yes, no, it was completely irrelevant to that. So I was a lifestyle blogger, which another word is mommy blogger. So I blogged about different things with parenting and with education and with different products, things I was trying, recipes, just, your basic lifestyle that a mom of young kids has. And it was popular. It was great. But then I had to start over.
Yeah. And can I ask what made you start that? And were you still sort of a teacher at that point when you started your mummy blog?
I started it because I was going stir crazy by quote unquote staying home.
Right.
And so when my older son was 3 months old, I started teaching at the university, and I taught teacher ed classes. So I taught teachers how to teach. And I did that for 3 years. But it was really difficult to do that with 2 kids. And my husband at the time never wanted me to work at all, nor did any of his side of the family. Didn't want me to work at all with kids. And so there was a lot of stress, a lot of strain by doing that. And so I stopped doing that when my younger son was born. And then I quote unquote stayed home for 10 years, and it drove me batty. It was really, I know people say that staying home is the hardest thing and blah, blah, blah. And I heard that too. It is absolutely, without a doubt, the hardest thing I ever did. So incredibly hard. It's so much easier to work. And I don't care what someone's job is. It's so much easier to work. It's really, really tough. So, and so then so I did that, and it worked out well, and that was fun, and it was lovely. But then I thought, well, why do I have any sort of middleman in here? I need to have my own brand.
Yeah. And that's where you kind of decided to go down the business coaching route. How did you transition then from that blog, the blogging, to what you're doing today with the business coaching?
Well, it just sort of faded away because I saw what was happening with my numbers, and it was very clear to me that mommy bloggers were not interested in making money, not any real money. And not any money that came from them. They were not interested in doing what I was doing. They were not interested in breaking out and creating their own brand. They were simply interested in having somebody give them money for representing their brand.
Okay.
And I have no understanding of that, to be honest with you. But that's what happened. So that faded away.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so how did you then go on to start your business coaching? And and what obviously the motivation came from, because with the blogging then There was no alignment. I don't know if that's the right word. It wasn't really consistent, the blogging with the business coaching. But what really made you want to go into that?
Well, I knew that I wanted to start a business of my own, and I knew that I wanted to create my own brand. And I did know about business, but it was all self-taught.
Yeah.
People, constantly, and I do mean constantly, told me, well, Bonnie, you don't know anything about business. You're a teacher. That did not go over well. Trust me. Not the first time or the umpteenth time I heard it. And because of the emotional abuse that was going on in my home as well, I was very, very determined that I was going to show my boys that a woman, that a girl, that their mom, that someone who is quote unquote ill-equipped to do something can absolutely start from scratch and succeed and do a really, really good job of it. And that's really what kept me going, because they were hearing different messages from the other side. And yet they were seeing me do exactly what I was doing every day. And whenever they were told different things that were, that should never be said to kids, I made sure to tell them it's not okay, and you won't do that when you're a daddy, and it's not okay that was said or done or whatever. Anyway, so when I started, I knew about social media because I had taught myself about that from being a mommy blogger. So I knew that part, but I didn't know how to start a business. I knew how to create a website. I had done that myself too. I don't code. I still to this day do not code, and I have no learning, even though people are like, oh, I'll teach you. No. I don't know. There are ways to get around that. I don't want to.
You don't need to.
No, there are drag and drop. I have Kajabi, and everything I do for my business is under Kajabi, and I don't have to code. So when I started my business, I literally just decided to do it overnight. I had been subbing. I went back to sub to be a substitute teacher for a little bit, a very short amount of time, because I had been once again pressured to, make more money for my husband. So I decided to do that, and I just hated it. And I knew I would hate it because you're teaching somebody else's lessons. And I just saw really bad teachers, and it was very disillusioning. And so I really wanted no part of it. And in the States, there's this thing called Common Core, and Common Core is where at every grade level and every subject there are not just suggestions of what to be taught. There are lessons, everyday lessons. So you don't need to have any sort of education degree to teach anymore in the States, in my opinion. You really don't. Anybody can teach, because every lesson for every day, for every month, for every year, for every grade all of the tests and all of the test dates are already prescribed.
Right.
You simply have to stand up and deliver.
Right.
And it was awful. And I decided then and there I wanted zero part of education at all, even though I'd put myself through school and worked 3 jobs to get my degrees, and I didn't want any part of it. So I literally just opened up my business overnight. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I didn't know at the time that I was going to be coaching. I thought I was just going to make courses.
Yeah.
I knew how to do that as a teacher. That was easy.
Yeah.
But when I realized how incredibly difficult it was, and I was looking for a coach myself, I voraciously looked online, and I vetted people, and I found 25 different coaches who would give 1 hour free coaching. And so without them knowing it, I was basically interviewing them by having them coach me.
Yeah.
And so, because it's certainly more efficient than simply interviewing somebody, I felt on the consumer side what it was like to be coached by that person. And I hated all of them. They were horrible. They were just awful. And so after the 25th, I was exhausted, and nobody vets like that. People think I'm nuts for doing that. But that's when I also decided to add coaching to my repertoire. And for 14 months straight, I had no clients. So I worked every day, 7 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day while my kids were at sports or school or sleepovers or whatever is when I would work. And I had no money coming in from that and all of the pressure. And then at the 14-month mark is when I started live streaming. And I thought, okay, I have nothing to lose because I'm already making no money really well.
Yeah.
So I started live streaming and I started doing it 3 to 7 times a day.
Wow.
And after 6 days, I started landing paid clients.
Oh, amazing.
Yep.
So that was what really turned it around for you.
Yes. And it wasn't, and I was the same person. And I was saying the same things, but I was saying it in a way that people could hear me. And I was saying it in a way that I could reach my ideal client. And even though I'd been posting on social media and I'd been blogging and I'd been doing videos and all of those things, right? I knew how to do all of those things from social media.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I started live streaming and I started on Periscope that it really clicked for me and for them. And I've lived in St. Louis, Missouri, and right in the middle of the state. I've lived here for my entire life. And I had 2 clients from Australia before I ever had one from St. Louis. So my clients are all over the world.
Yeah.
They're in 13 different countries and lots of different time zones.
Yeah.
And the internet makes all of that possible.
Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, my first business, the Craft Academy, I started it as just like a small local business, and then I started creating online courses back in 2008, actually helping women start their own creative home businesses. And that was because I had like a little studio where I was doing kind of local courses, but I'd started getting so many inquiries from people all over the world, like you say. And at that point, I'd never dreamed that I would have anybody outside of the UK as customers. But it is amazing the opportunities that we now have with the internet. But why do you say, with regard to sort of, obviously you say it was 14 months of hard slog and no money, no customers. So up until that point, I mean, well, one, you've got a lot of determination, which I think is essential for any entrepreneur anyway, persistence, determination, resilience. But what were you doing up until that point? Was it mostly sort of blogging and sort of videos through YouTube? I mean, why do you think it made all that difference doing the live streaming?
Well, I think it made the difference because of my teaching background, which is completely ironic because that's the reason why people told me I would never succeed. Because I was quote unquote only a teacher. And I do mean that they use those words. Bonnie, you're only a teacher. How can you teach people about business? And it is exactly the reason that because I was a teacher, I was able to explain things in a way that people could understand. I was able to teach things in a variety of ways. When I taught at a multiple intelligences school, the second in this country. And literally people from all over the world would come and watch me teach every day. And then I traveled around the country teaching other teachers how to teach, how to teach creatively and in different modalities. So I already had that background and I was able to do that. And now I was simply teaching different subjects. And I had already taught adults at the university, but even if I hadn't, all of the presentations that I'd done prior to hundreds and hundreds of teachers and administrators, was certainly enough experience and enough proof to me that I could do it. And so it worked, but it worked also because they could see me.
Yeah.
And I know on the podcast, they're just hearing me, but if they would see me, they would see that I have dangly earrings on. They would see that I have long hair. They would see that I talk with my hands constantly.
Yeah.
And so when people would see me doing that, live streaming, live video is the next best thing to sitting next to somebody at a coffee shop. It's the next best thing. It's the closest you can possibly get to actually being in person. Because you are in person. It's just through a computer screen. It's more personal, it's more intimate, and it's more real than any social media platform, than any other social media platform, than blogging, than doing, pre-produced videos and putting them on YouTube. YouTube or Vimeo or your website. It's more intimate, and it's in the here and now. So people could ask me questions and I could answer them right then. There was zero wait time for them. It was absolutely immediate gratification. And it wasn't social proof in terms of, oh, look how many followers she has on Twitter, even though I was, building all of that up and have over the years. It wasn't that. It was, look at the proof that she knows what she's talking about. She's right in front of me. And she's telling me all these things and I'm taking notes, and it is proving that she knows what she's talking about. And that's what I did 3 to 7 times a day, every single day. And for the first 2 years, I didn't have to do any funnels. I had no marketing funnels, and I never had to pay for advertising. I would simply live stream and people would hire me. That was my funnel.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing. And so did you make that commitment that, I'm going to do this a minimum of 3 to 7 times a day? Or did you have some sort of content creation plan that you thought, okay, these are the topics I'm going to be talking about when I live stream? How did that actually pan out?
Oh, that's funny. Yes, I did commit to the number of times a day. I did do that because I had nothing to lose. I wasn't making any money doing what I was doing, and my kids were no longer in diapers. They were older by then. They were teenagers, and so they had camps and they had school and they had sports and they had things. So I had the time to do it, and I certainly had 3 to 7 times a day. Each of my live streams are still about 20 minutes. They're always about 20 minutes. And so I had the time to do that because nothing else was working consistently. Every day, nothing else was working. So I had committed to the number of times a day. I did not have any sort of scheduling anything. I did not have an editorial calendar. I just started talking. And I would talk about social media, and I would talk about marketing, and I would talk about starting a website, and I would talk about all these things that I had already done. And I would talk about things that I was doing, and I would talk about live streaming, and I would teach them about that. And the more I talked about different things that I was learning and different ways that you could do something, whatever it was, the more people would follow me, and the more interest I garnered, and the more money I made. So I didn't know. It's not like I had an editorial calendar, and I had that when I was blogging, and I have that now for my social media. But at the time, I just did it. I just started. And all of still to this day, anything that happens is a business lesson. Anything. And anything that happens can be a life lesson. Anything that happens to anybody all around you every day can be lessons if you're open to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I always I was sitting in a coffee shop when I first started my live streaming. I started in coffee shops to get myself out of the house for obvious reasons now. And so I would live stream from coffee shops, and I did it so much, and I would always hold up the cup that I had, and I would always talk about the coffee shop because they were great and I loved them. And then they started giving me free coffee, which was even more wonderful because really the only thing you need to do this business is caffeine and Wi-Fi. That's really it. So I had those 2 things.
Oh, wow.
And I was getting them both for free at that point. So that was great. And so there was one time where this coffee shop that I would live stream from, it was kind of close quarters in where I would always be. And I would just wait for sort of off hours that not as many people would be there, and they wouldn't be bothered by my live streaming, or I just didn't care. And so there was a grandpa and a grandmother who were sitting about 3 feet from me. That's how close the tables were. And so I couldn't not hear what they were saying. It was impossible. So I eavesdropped. And so the girl was, I don't know how old she was, but she had a little ballet outfit on. And she was small enough to be in a high chair. And it was adorable. And I had 2 boys. So anytime I see a little girl, I'm just like, oh. So I'm looking and, kind of side looking, pretending not to pay attention. And they had no idea I was watching them or listening. And she was dangling her little feet, and they were talking about her ballet lesson. And he had picked her up. I believe it was a Saturday. He had picked her up from the lesson, and he was having a latte and she was having a hot, and they were just chatting. And it was so beautiful and so wonderful and so natural, and so not necessarily an extraordinary moment for them. It was an extraordinary moment for me. And I waited until after they left, and then I went back on Periscope and I live streamed about that. And I told them that was a lesson to me, that no matter what was going on around you, you need to enjoy the now. You need to enjoy and appreciate what's around you, what's right in front of you. It was a huge business lesson to me, because here I was, doing all of these live streams and working so hard and putting in all these hours against all of these conditions mentally. Yes, I had a roof over my head. Yes, I had meals. It wasn't that, but all of the lack of support could have made anyone quit. And yet this was a great lesson. Every single day, there are things to appreciate. Every single day, there are things to be grateful for, things to be thankful for. And every day, every one of us has the opportunity to just stop and be and appreciate the moment. And that was the lesson. And so that's what I talked about. So to me, everything is a lesson, and everything is a business lesson, because the business, guess what? It's going to wait for you. It's going to be right where you left it, whenever you left it, to go appreciate the moment. It'll still be there.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. And I mean, you've obviously talked about the lack of support, and obviously you had quite a lot of trouble sort of going on in your home life, in your married life, which must have been a lot of pressure. But do you think that lack of support almost might have spurred you on? Like, I'll show them I can do this. Because you could go one of 2 ways. You can either listen to those negative voices and just think, okay, I'll give up, or you can actually use it as a catalyst. So I'm just kind of interested in how that sort of affected you, and whether that actually helped or hindered you.
Yes, and I thought the whole time, I thought so many times about quitting. Well, first of all, everyone was telling me to quit, but I also... it would have been so easy to quit. And I thought many times of quitting, but I say that yes, it was a catalyst. And I always say that my husband at the time, we're now divorced, thank goodness. And my husband at the time, I always say he was my negative muse, because he was my muse, but he was also very negative. He was my negative muse. And it wasn't, I'll show him.
Yeah.
It was really, I'll show them, because I wanted to show my boys that not only I could do it, but that a woman could do it.
Yeah.
Because they saw a very different level of appreciation and respect in that household.
Yeah. And is this because you felt like you were being undermined, and because they were hearing negative things from other people about, you know, your mum can't do this, or women can't do this, or whatever the stories were, and so that became your driver, that you actually wanted to actually show your boys, no, this is possible, I can do this, yes, and anyone can do this?
Yes, absolutely. That's 100% right. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And they needed to see that not only a woman could do it, but that their mom could do it. And I was doing it while I was caring for my husband's health, both mental and physical, because his physical health was affected because of lots of different things he would do. Mm-hmm. And so I was physically and mentally taking care of him. I was raising them. I was the one who would, took them to the sports. I was the one who ran their AAU basketball teams, and we traveled all over the country. I took them to their college visits. I went to their parent-teacher conferences. I mean, I was the one doing all of those things. I went on the Cub Scout overnights in a tent. Yeah. I was, I did the Pinewood Derby. I mean, I was really the only parent they had. Yeah. Definitely the only one that they could count on. Yeah. My husband at the time, he was there. I mean, he was under the same roof, but he was not parenting at all. And I needed to show them that their mom could do it, that a woman could do it, that a girl could do it, and also that anyone could do it without any training. Yeah. I love that. But you've mentioned obviously that you thought many times about giving up, and you had 14 months where you didn't have any clients and you weren't making any money. So what is it that made you keep going? Because I think a lot of people do give up. They do give up because I think sometimes when people go into business that they have this sort of like, I don't know, rose spectacled view of how it's going to be, and it's going to be easy. But obviously starting a business is not easy. It does take a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, persistence, resilience, all of those things that clearly you have demonstrated. But what is it that made you keep going? Well, lots of different things. So, well, first of all, I'm very stubborn. I think that's pretty obvious. And, the worst and best thing that someone can tell me is no. Yeah. So that was happening a lot. And then I did everything I could possibly do for free to help myself. Mm-hmm. So I read as much as I possibly could. I attended webinars, as many as I possibly could, to learn as much as I could. I didn't have the money to, a lot of webinars will pitch something at the end. I never had the money to buy the product, but I listened to a lot of webinars. I took, oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how many journals filled with notes from webinars, from YouTube videos, from books that I'd read, from just people I'd spoken with. I always kept a journal with me. And if I spoke to anybody about anything, it was a business lesson and I wrote it down. Yeah. I would listen to, oh goodness, hundreds of podcasts, so many different podcasts. I listened to podcasts on money mindset. I listened to podcasts on being an entrepreneur. I listened to motivational and inspirational podcasts. I listened to podcasts by women, podcasts by men, podcasts by young people, podcasts by old people, all different things. Because like I said, everything is a business lesson. And still to this day, I follow so many different types of people online. People are always amazed. They're like, you follow him or you follow her? Because I'm not in their demographic. Yeah. But it doesn't mean I can't learn from them. No, absolutely. So all of those things to help me. And then besides that, I did mantras and I did affirmations, and I don't know how much it helped, but I did it. I would write different things and put it on my, write it on a sticky note and put it on my computer screen. And then I would take it off so that my husband at the time wouldn't see it when I wasn't in front of my computer screen, because I knew he would make fun of me for it. So I would take it down then, but I would keep it up while I was working. I would do that. So I did anything and everything I found out other people were doing.
Yeah.
And I found out were working for them, and I would try those things.
Yeah, so kind of like modeling, you know, looking at other people that are successful and kind of like, you know, modeling that type of behavior, or, you know, which is learning, isn't it? You know, looking at other people, seeing how they do things and actually adopting those things that work and learning as you go along, really.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, and now I have things that are part of my everyday, or at least part of my every week. Mm-hmm. And people are still very surprised that I do yoga or that I meditate, because I'm not very woo-woo. I'm very business-like. There's very little gray area with me. It's really black or white. Because from what I've said, I mean, hopefully the listeners can glean that I wanted to succeed. And if you want to succeed, you can. And I don't care what it is that you're up against. I don't care.
I love that, because this is obviously all about mindset. And so would you say that you, which I think is really important in business, that you have that positive mindset and that resilience and determination, but would you say that you naturally have that positive, success focused mindset, or is that something that you've had to develop?
I had to develop that.
And how did you develop it?
Well, I was much more positive before I was married. I mean, I'll be very honest. It's very true. And this happens to women a lot, and men as well, that sometimes, you know, you lose yourself in that marriage. You lose who you are, and you lose what your favorite things are. And I didn't just lose them. Mine were buried so far deep under all of that junk I was going through. I couldn't find them until I was out of that house. And so it took me a long time, a really long time. And I really, you know, I'm the baby of 5 kids, and my dad is a World War II hero, and came from Russian parents, and, you know, you had mine. And so that was my upbringing, and I really attribute a lot to that. And I've thought of him so much since having been divorced, and so much because, you know, people would always say when I was little, his name is Jonas, and they would always call me Little Jonas. And I always thought that was so weird, because he was a boy and I was a girl, and that made no sense to me. And now I completely understand why they did that, because there is so much of him in me. So I naturally had the positive. The positive was all but obliterated when I was married, and then the positive came back. So the positive is who I am naturally, but it wasn't available for a while. It
was buried. And I completely get what you're saying, and I know a lot of listeners will relate to this as well, that I think as women, and you know, men as well, but I think particularly as women, we do go through different stages of our life, and we can lose sense of who we are. We can lose our identity, we can lose our confidence, and you know, that it may be to do with, you know, even having children, you know, because like you said, you were a stay-at-home mum for quite a while, but I think you then become, you know, I've got 2 children, Harvey's mum, Elliot's mum, or, you know, somebody's wife, and you kind of almost lose your identity a little bit. And I think particularly if you have gone through a challenging marriage, if you say, of course you're going to lose your confidence. And that certainly happened to me. You know, I've gone through divorce and being a single parent and everything. But from my point of view, it's actually my entrepreneurial journey that allowed me to rediscover who I was and regain my confidence. And did that happen for you as well?
It did, and I also really, you know, you find out who your friends are. I went through 2 lawyers during my divorce. The first one took all the money I had, which I was wearing on my left hand. And really nothing came of that. And then I had to hire a second lawyer, and I reached out to people to help me. And they did. And they've all, it's all been very confidential as to who actually helped. But my ex-husband would be very shocked to see who actually reached out to help me divorce him. Because no matter what you're going through, and no matter how you try to cover everything up and make everything seem like things are fine, people see and people know, they notice. And people knew what was going on. They didn't know what was going on, but they knew it wasn't great. And they heard and saw things that I had no idea they remembered. I hadn't even remembered. I buried them over other things. So, so you definitely learn to ask for help, which I had never done before. And you learn who your friends are, and you learn what you need. And for so long it was just my kids' needs and my husband's needs and the house's needs, and I didn't have an opportunity to have needs. I was so busy helping everyone else.
And I think that's common for a lot of women as well. We kind of put ourselves last, for sure. So I mean, obviously, so you've got this, like you say, this natural positive mindset which got buried for a long time. And I'm just kind of interested, because obviously you were being told by people, you can't do this, you were only a teacher, but you have done it. So you proved them wrong. And probably your teaching background, and I'm sure has helped, because obviously being a business coach is all about teaching, isn't it? It's all about teaching. But in those early stages of growing your business, because obviously you had to learn about business at the same time. So those early live streaming sort of video lessons, if you like, that you did, were you teaching what you were actually learning as you were building your business? Is that how it all started?
I was teaching that. I was also, like I said, everything is business lessons. So I was also explaining teachable moments, different things like the grandfather and the granddaughter. I was teaching them about Periscope, because that was new. I started on July 3rd of 2015. And Periscope was only a few months old by that point. So it was all new. So I was doing a lot of teaching with that. But I knew that I could start with social media. I understood social media. I understood blogging. I understood how to create a website, and I understood lots of different platforms to do all of that. And I understood all the different social media platforms. So I already had a lot of content in my head that I could pull from. So that's how I started. And then I brought in the other things that I was teaching as I was learning them.
Okay. I get it. And what about kind of like growing your audience then? Because presumably, like, when you started, you said obviously you had your lifestyle blog, but none of that audience could follow you because it wasn't relative. How did you go about building your audience in the early stages?
I just started. I literally just started. And sometimes people might get, I don't know, at certain points in my journey, I was sick and tired of hearing just start. But that's the God's honest truth. You got to just start. Everybody, I don't care who they are. Everybody starts with 0 Twitter followers. Everybody starts with 0 views on a video and 0 subscribers on YouTube or on your podcast or your blog. Everybody. Every brick and mortar business starts with 0 sales. Everybody. So you just have to start. And that's what I did. And I would, I still posted on social media and I still blogged. I blogged less and less because I was live streaming. But so none of that was different. What was different was the live streaming. And people found me. I didn't go and search them. They found me. And the truth is, and I don't care what platform you're talking about, and I don't care how noisy of a social media space you're referring to, every single person can be seen and heard and recognized and remembered, and they can monetize that platform if they're consistent, and they've got good content to share. Everybody.
Yeah. So it's all about the content and consistency, because I think, like you say, I think when you're starting out and you're, maybe posting things and you feel like you're not getting the traction that you hope for, I think that's when a lot of people perhaps give up, isn't it? They stop that consistency, but you have to keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there will always be, we don't own the social media space, right?
Yeah.
People complain about Facebook or whatever. Okay, complain about Facebook. You'll never hear me complain about Facebook, because guess what? Facebook makes me money. So does every other platform. Why in the world would I complain about that? But they make me money not because they're there. They make me money because I use them in a way that reaches my audience. You have to know who you're talking to, and you're not speaking to everybody. You're not. This podcast is not for everybody. It's for a certain target audience, and you know that, and that's how your people find you. Well, it's exactly the same regardless of what business or enterprise you're in. Doesn't matter. You have to know who you're speaking to. And I knew who I was speaking to. When I got on Periscope, I knew exactly who I was speaking to. I had my ideal client avatar carved out. I knew who she was. I knew her name. I knew everything I needed to know about her, and I spoke to her. I kept a little stick figure drawing. I still have it now on my computer. I kept it in front of me for the first 100 Periscope broadcasts I did, to remind myself where the camera was on my phone. So I spoke to her every time. And if you do that, if you know who your people are, they'll find you. Yeah.
And I love that. And I think that's, a lot of people don't have that. They don't have a clear idea of who their ideal client is. And I do something similar. If I'm doing a video or a live video, I've actually got like a little photograph of who I think my ideal client is. And I'm talking to that person, the same, absolutely the same thing. So I totally relate to that. I just wanted to touch on something as well. I mean, we are going to have to draw to a close quite soon, but you mentioned in the early stages you were actually looking for a business coach, but you didn't find any that you wanted to work with or that you really could relate to. And why was that? And how do you think what you kind of offer is different?
I couldn't, and I tried. I mean, I think 25 is a really good try.
Yeah, that's a good try.
I couldn't. They were horrible. They were, either they weren't professional enough for me, and or they really didn't know what they were talking about. It was very clear to me, very clear to me. And yes, anybody can be a coach. You don't have to graduate from XYZ coaching school. I never did. I also don't have a degree in business. Guess what? I'm a business coach. So no, you don't have to do that, but you have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I didn't, at least for me, I didn't feel that they did. Some were much too woo-woo, much too vague. Some were just, what they were telling me was flat out wrong. And I knew that already from my research. And some I just didn't connect with. So for me, they were horrible. Now, maybe for other people, they might have been wonderful, or they might have been okay. I don't know. But I never hired a coach until this year. And I didn't even hire her one-on-one. I did a group program.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I would not hire her one-on-one, by the way. So, it's interesting because people tend to waste. I was going to say spend, but it's not. It's waste. People tend to waste a lot of money on a lot of coaches and programs and courses and this and that and the other, because they don't know what they need. They think they need this, or someone told them they need that, or whatever. They don't know exactly what they're looking for, because they don't know what they need, because they don't even know what their business is about, because they certainly don't know who their ideal client is. And so they buy this and they buy that, and they get talked into this and whatever. And usually those people are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars down the drain by the time they meet me.
Yeah.
The irony of starting from scratch and having no money to invest is that you have no money to invest. And so I didn't have the luxury, but I also didn't have the burden of having money to spend on anything.
Yeah. I didn't have the luxury to make those types of mistakes. And then by the time that I knew what I wanted, I knew I didn't need it. Yeah. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people do get distracted, this whole shiny object syndrome, and sort of going down the wrong rabbit holes, if that's what we want to call them. It happens quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Because, I always say if you have two different people and they both have the same product and that product is average, the better marketer will win every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or if one product is better, the better marketer will win every time. It doesn't matter what the product is.
Yeah.
If they can market it better, they win. They get the sales. Yeah,
absolutely. It's so important, definitely. And sort of also getting that visibility, actually sort of getting yourself out there, the marketing is so important. So we are gonna have to draw to a close, but I just wanted to ask you, if people wanted to find out more about you and connect with you, how can they do that, Bonnie?
So my website is bonnielfrank.com. It's BONNIELFRANK.com. So you can find all of my stuff at bonnielfrank.com. And I'm all over social media, and I would love to connect.
Well, that is lovely. I will make sure that all of those links are in the show notes, and also over on the Victress Entrepreneurs website as well. But I want to thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed hearing about your Victress story, and your determination, your resilience is amazing. I think it's really inspiring. I think it's going to inspire a lot of people, because I think that, when people start in business, sometimes people give up too soon. So to hear that you've gone through that 14 months of no customers and no income, but you kept going and you've gone on to create such an incredibly successful business, I think is going to inspire so many people. So thank you for joining me today, Bonnie.
Thank you. And I want to extend the opportunity to anyone listening. I would love to extend a free 20-minute chat for them. However I can help, I would love to help, and it's totally free and no pitching. I don't sell. I do not sell. So just go to bit.ly/chat Bonnie. bit.ly/chat Bonnie.
That is amazing. If you send over that link to me, I'll make sure again that is included in the show notes and also on the website as well, because I'm sure that's going to be really interesting for a lot of our listeners. So once again, thank you, Bonnie, and I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. And to you, our wonderful Victress FM listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed this interview as much as I have. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about Bonnie, please either check out the show notes or head over to victressentrepreneurs.com, where all of our podcast guests are featured on our website. Please also check out all of our amazing free resources to help you through each stage of starting, launching and growing your business. And don't forget to subscribe to Victress FM on iTunes or Stitcher to make sure that you don't miss out on another inspiring episode. But until next week, stay victorious.
You're listening to Victress FM. Victress Entrepreneurs, for women who are victorious in business and in life.